Hello, everybody, and God damn it.
Blooper.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rabbit Hole Roulette. I am your host, Matty P, alongside my co-host, Tony O. Tony O, you got a fun fact for the day before we get started.
Hello, rabbits. Yes, Matty P, I do.
Oh.
So I know last episode you talked about the 4th of July and having all 10 digits. So did you know that most people probably know bicentennial, right? 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
But few people probably know the official name for the 250th anniversary. Did you know what that is?
I do not.
Semi-quincentennial.
Semi-quincentennial. Rolls right off the tongue.
Yes, and the hardest part really isn't celebrating, it's pronouncing the name technically.
Sure.
So there's a time capsule they buried, apparently, that won't be opened or unearthed until July 4th, 2276.
2276. That puts you, what, 300 years?
250 years from now.
Oh, you said 2276.
Yeah.
I heard 20. I heard 2076 in my head. Sorry.
Yeah. So again, very, very 4th of July fun facty today for me, or current eventy. And the other part of that is when you look at the 4th of July, the Declaration of Independence specifically, it was only one page.
Mm-hmm.
It was essentially, like 1,000, 1,300 something words.
Yeah.
Effectively a 5-minute speech.
Handwritten.
Handwritten, right? But yeah, that's my little fun fact. Semi-quincentennial America.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
I say handwritten, and, I kind of said it as a joke because obviously they didn't have computers and stuff back then, but they did have the printing press back then, right? Because Franklin was around then, so they had the printing press. So they could have printed it and sent
First
it. But
name basis, huh?
I think
Franklin.
well, last name basis, technically.
That.
But they could have printed it on the printing press, but I think they sent the handwritten, or they did it handwritten for the reason, for the meaning behind it, right? Which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, of course. It's big F-U to the King of England or Queen of England or whoever was over
King,
here.
King at the time. So along those same lines with the 4th of July festivities, did you know Nancy Pelosi's husband is currently being charged in a hit and run in California?
I don't even know who Nancy Pelosi is.
Former Speaker of the for the Democratic Party.
Are you guys also on a first name basis?
No.
I don't know her.
She doesn't know me. Maybe she's a fan. I don't know.
Well, Mrs. Pelosi, come on the show. Let's talk about it. So her husband is doing what now? A hit and run?
Being charged for a hit and run in California. Apparently the car was left with major damages. I haven't heard what happened to the other guy. I don't know if he's still alive or if he passed. I'm not sure the details per se there, but it's on my feed that he is currently being charged. Apparently the car had major damage.
2 questions. Did he want to hit the person, and did the person want to be hit?
I highly doubt it.
A little throwback right here. A little throwback, rabbits.
He struck a car that was legally parked on the side of the road while leaving what they are labeling as the heart of wine country. So probably.
He was drinking.
Yeah, Napa County. Oh yeah, definitely was.
A little tipsy.
He briefly stopped after hitting the car, then drove away. No injuries reported. So it was just a car-to-car collision.
He literally left that wine club and said, "Everybody in the club getting tipsy."
Yeah, for sure. Jesus. Yep.
Oh, that's pretty good. No, I didn't know that. Didn't even know who Nancy Pelosi was. Sorry, Mrs. Pelosi.
Yeah. Been in politics for a long time. All right.
Which is why I also don't want to know who she is. All right. Yeah. So let's get into this. Speaking for a long time.
Spin the wheel. We spin to win. We go again. Where are you? Share my screen. All right. Can you see the big purple wheel of doom?
I can. It looks good. It looks good every time you pull it up.
I'm a big fan. I worked hard on this wheel. Typed in a couple names. All right, you ready?
Let's do this.
3, 2, 1. Oh, it is you again, Mr. Tonio. You're on a hot streak.
Bingo.
Outstanding. I got an easy week.
All right.
Easy 2 weeks.
Share this. Can you see that wheel?
Sure can.
All right, Matty P, rabbits. Only 2 left on my end. I know you only have 1 topic left.
I do.
On my end, we've got 5 days missing, and I'm going to rehab. Any thoughts on either one of those already?
I'm going to rehab. The only thing that comes to mind is either Winehouse or Charlie Sheen. And then
Charlie Sheen also could have been voted most interesting man as well.
Oh, could have, for sure. Another one I'd love to have on the show at some point. 5 days missing. I am assuming a missing persons or group again, similar to the Dyatlov Pass incident. But
I love a good missing person.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's spin this. Ready? Here we go.
Yep.
Boom shakalaka. What we got? Ooh, going to rehab.
And I said no, no, no.
So when getting clean became the start of something even stranger.
Oh.
Going to rehab. No, 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 no. All right, so let me stop sharing. So did that bring up any thoughts? What'd you think of that? I heard your
Rehab made somebody stranger, or started something stranger. Trying to think, the biggest celebrities I could think of that have done rehab stints would be Britney Spears, Charlie Sheen, Lindsay Lohan, but all of them came out mostly more normal after the fact. So no, I'm not sure who you're talking about or what you're talking about.
What if the name was Charles Dederich? I also don't expect you to know that one.
Not ringing a bell.
All right, so let's kind of get into this. So this episode specifically has a little bit of everything, okay? Has recovering alcoholics.
Okay.
Has group therapy.
Sure.
Forced divorces.
Okay.
One of my personal favorites, shaved heads.
Oh.
Paranoia, and ultimately a rattlesnake in a mailbox.
Okay.
And with all of that, none of that was in the original plan or the original design. Okay, so you look perplexed. I love that. So I'm hoping my rabbits out there are also equally going, what?
Yeah.
All right. So what if I told you that one of America's most notorious cult leaders didn't set out to start a cult at all in the first place? He was just a recovering alcoholic trying to help other alcoholics stay off the sauce. So fast forward 20 years later, and his followers are putting rattlesnakes in people's mailboxes.
This isn't Manson, is it?
No, it's Charles Dederich.
Well, I thought maybe that was his original name before he switched to Manson.
No. Oh, Charles, I see what you did there. No. Well, the strangest part is that the group Synanon, it didn't start as a cult at all. It started as a rehab program, and it actually worked until it worked so well, and no one knew how to stop it.
Oh.
All right, so I always paint my stories with pictures. Again, imagine it, right? So imagine you're an alcoholic in California in the 50s.
Okay.
So we're not too far off from that right now. Okay. I've been off the sauce for a long, long time as well. But alcoholic, California, 50s. Okay. You've tried everything to stop. Therapy doesn't work. Rehab at the time barely existed. And basically society writes you off as a lost cause.
Okay.
Okay. So then one day you hear about a guy by the name of Charles Dederich. Dederich isn't a preacher. He wasn't claiming he could talk to God. He wasn't predicting the end of the world. He was simply a guy who was a recovering alcoholic who believed that addicts could help each other stay sober. At first, it worked, and it worked very well. Okay. People, again, written off by society, suddenly start getting clean, and then word spreads. More people show up. Oh shit, this is working.
Mm-hmm.
More show up. This is working. More show up. Soon, Dederich's little support group became a movement. And this is where it kind of got weird, right?
So successful business.
Very, very successful.
Okay.
And all he wanted to do was have other addicts just help one another.
Sure. No,
Again, and they do
noble
that
cause.
now, right? You have a partner, or you have a sober friend, or whatever it is, right?
You got your AA, your NA, yeah, same
Yep.
concept, right? Your accountability buddy.
Exactly what it is, right? You had your battle buddy with you. So he came up with, for his program or his deal, something that he called, quote, the game. So unlike the Michael Douglas movie from the 90s,
Ooh, good reference.
Members would sit in a circle and they would verbally tear apart each other. Nothing was off limits. So in this instance, I'm going to sit across from you and I'm like, Matty P, your goatee looks stupid. Your sideburns aren't even. You look silly or worse, right?
Yeah.
So your appearance, relationships, any secrets that you knew, any insecurities, everything was fair game. The idea behind it was that brutal honesty would break through any person's denial.
So a whole break you all the way down before they build you back up kind of deal.
Pretty much,
similar,
right? So the military does that.
Yeah, similar. I was going to say, similar to the military strategy. Break you down, then build you back up.
So, and at first, many participants said it actually helped them.
Mm-hmm.
So the group, again, they've called themselves Synanon. As they grew, the game became less therapy and more almost psychological warfare. So my reference on this specifically is, you can find it on the internet, or People Magazine, specifically people.com, did a story on this as well. So the moment it changes, so here's where basically the accidental cult leader part comes in. So again, Dederich never said, I'm a prophet. He never, said, hey, worship me. People simply began treating him like he had all the answers. And of stopping them, he kind of liked it.
Sure.
So the more members listened, the more authority he gained, right? So the more authority he gained, the more extreme his demands became. So it kind of got into his head.
So he started getting drunk on power.
Pretty much. And that formed this feedback loop, right? So, and I give a lot of trainings for work, and I talk about this feedback loop. And so everybody else around him basically acted like he was a genius. And he eventually started believing it.
Okay.
So as years go by, so through the 50s, Synanon, they stopped being a recovery group and they became really an isolated community. So think Waco, but less stuff, right? All right.
Yes.
So members were told who they could marry, who they could divorce, where they could live, how they should raise their children. Members basically, a lot of times, would surrender their money or possessions. Families would separate, or families became separated. And children were sometimes raised communally instead of by their parents.
Why does it always fall into giving away or selling all your money and possessions with cults? Why is that always? Do you think it's just to isolate you so you have no escape?
Well, yeah, exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And in this instance, you're not tied to anything. Same with your children, right? You can't even be tied to that, right? So they're sent away. So this is where the cult goes full cult. Okay. So by the 70s, now we're fast forwarded in 20 years now. So this has been around for a while. Basically, he had transformed from a recovering alcoholic to an unquestioned leader. And then his orders got really bizarre. Specifically, some members of the group were pressured into vasectomies. I talked about forced divorces, again, who they could divorce. You need to divorce somebody. Head shaving, public humiliation rituals. They became increasingly paranoid. And anybody who criticized this group were treated like enemies, right? So journalists, anybody who wanted to write about this, obviously you're not getting the facts, you're not on the inside, so you're spreading lies. And so journalists were targeted. Even former members, people who left the group, because apparently people could leave, they were harassed. And then so here's where it kind of gets difficult but funny, but it sounds kind of made up. The rattlesnake attack. So there was a lawyer named Paul Morantz, and he was investigating Synanon and helping former members.
Mm-hmm.
One day he's outside, he opens his mailbox. Inside was a live rattlesnake. The snake bit him and he survived.
Yeah.
Investigators eventually connected the attack to Synanon members. So Dederich later faced criminal consequences related to the conspiracy surrounding this attack. So through it all, after years of scandals, lawsuits, these investigations, and even financial problems, Synanon collapsed. So what truly began as a support group for addicts ended in this violent authoritarian cult. So before Dederich could ever go to jail or anything like that, he died in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
But his story, or the story of this group, remains a strange example of how a simple movement can slowly drift in this cult territory and have no actual planning for it.
Yeah. That is
So what are your
wild
thoughts?
that they tried to use a rattlesnake, which I guess makes sense, right? Because you could potentially claim that was natural causes. You could say you can't, unless you have like video evidence that somebody put it there, you could be like, oh, well, snake got in his mailbox and he got bit. Whoops, unfortunate. I don't understand how one goes from I'm going to help other alcoholics recover to now I'm a cult leader. I feel like he may have beat alcoholism as his addiction, but he replaced it with a getting drunk on power instead of on the sauce.
I would agree with that.
100%.
100% agree with that.
Once everybody started telling him how good he was doing and how great it was, his head just right. What's crazy is, with him taking over, saying, that some people had to get vasectomies, some people had to get divorces. Sounds a lot like
that's true power.
What was her name? Was her name Nancy Frankie or something
Pelosi?
like that? No, the one that was the one of the Mormon moms that got in trouble because they had their kids locked up and were being mistreated in the basement. There was two of them. I think Frankie was one of them. I forget the other gal's name at
I don't know
the
that
moment
one
off the top of my head, but they would be another good topic at some point. But yeah, they did the same kind of thing as they started off kind of trying to give advice to different Mormon couples that were struggling, and it got to a point where they basically could be like, "Hey, you two have to get divorced because it just isn't working," and people be like, "Okay, go get divorced," or "Hey, you need to kick your husband out for 6 months or a year and have no contact and keep him away from the kids because he's a bad influence," and yeah, it was wild. The head shaving, though, I feel like is just a power trip. I don't know why or where that came from. But again, like you said, it also kind of goes back to military, right? They give everybody the same crew cut, buzz cut, whatever, and then break them
Start anew,
down
right?
mentally and emotionally and physically, and then build them back up as the best, ideally the best version of themselves, right? When it comes to the military side. So I almost wonder, was this guy ever ex-military, or did he have like
I don't know that.
Don't know.
I don't know his
I'd be
background.
curious to know if that was something that influenced some of the stuff that he did, because it sounds very military-esque.
So I started to say that, the idea is looking at, like, I'm going to say true power, and that's the arbitrary term, but telling somebody that you can no longer have kids, you are now going to get a vasectomy.
Yeah.
You've now, his lineage is done at that point.
I mean, that's ultimate power, though, right? You just stopped an entire bloodline.
Correct. And people were doing it, or through coercion or whatever, right? For fear of whatever. And this happened through the course of 40 years. So from 1950s to 19, when he died in 97.
Yeah.
And he didn't go to jail or anything like that. I don't think he went to jail. But there was so much scandal that happened through the years, and just so much mounted on top of one another. And what the interesting part for me is how long it took that a helpful community just kind of teetered into that edge of cult to now it's terrible.
Where did you say they were based out of?
California.
California. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, California. So
Hmm.
at some point, obviously, there's people, they're going to question that leader, right? So when do you stop questioning that leader? When does criticism become forbidden?
Yeah, and we kind of touched on that a little bit when we discussed the Waco incident, right? And the Davidians, where
Mm-hmm.
they say, "Oh, you got to pick up and move here because the end of days is coming soon, it's happening soon." How long do you wait before you go, "Okay, it's been 3 weeks, 6 months, a year. Like I got laundry I need to do. I need to go to the
Yeah.
grocery store. Like I need to get a job to get some money coming in because I haven't worked in a year." Like how long do we have here before we're going, sky high? What does the timeline look like? So I'm curious. Yeah, it.
And that's what separates this from the Davidians in Waco, right? So
Mhm.
Synanon didn't begin with robes or compound or
Right.
even these doomsday prophecies. It was just simply a guy who wanted to help alcoholics.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild that it started with such a noble cause. I mean, to help recovering addicts, right, and alcoholics, but for it to turn into something like that. And that's why I think, like I said, he broke his addiction with alcohol, but he did not break his addiction with overall, because once he started getting the recognition and the followers, he
Hmm.
ran with it.
So we'll get into a little bit more trivia here, and in the sense that's the whole story, right? So this guy, alcoholic, started to help people. People are like, "Oh, you kind of know what you're talking about," and then word spread, and then he's like, they like me. I like this,"
Mhm.
and it grew from there, right? So specifically, again, it started as a voluntary rehab experiment.
Mhm.
So Synanon, as they called themselves, technically began in 1958, specifically in Santa Monica,
Okay.
and it was an alternative to traditional addiction treatment. With no religion, it was no formal therapy model. It was just addicts talking to addicts, and you see that now in group therapy.
Yeah, but that's the thing with like AA, right? It's based very heavily on Christianity. You're supposed to find God and then, atone for your sins. So this is the opposite of that, right? Like it has no
Yeah,
religious ties.
and it was just, hey, dude, you need to stop drinking. I'm going to hold you accountable. You need to hold me accountable, right? So there's your
Mhm.
battle buddy. And it had a reputation of being unusually effective for whatever reason. So the name Synanon um, basically comes from a mix of seminar, symposium, and anonymous. And it was originally meant to sound like a bit of an experimental word and not a movement. But Synanon now has become almost like a movement sounding word.
Yeah. Kind of sounds
The
like synonym.
game, synonym. I love that word.
Synonym.
So the game was intentionally thought of to be brutal, right?
Mhm.
So it wasn't metaphorical. It was a structured verbal confrontation. You weren't just criticized; you were required to participate in criticizing others, right?
Sure.
Basically, everyone policed everyone else. That was the whole point of this,
Mhm.
and you break through that denial. And at some point, again, they banned outside contact at one point.
Mhm.
Um, and how do you, when you look at the banning of outside contact, how do you even get new members? Do they cut off members at this point?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't know.
how do you draw in
Yeah,
more
I don't know
members if you're
that.
not? Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, you want to have the secrecy right when you start getting into the cult territory, but if you're not recruiting new members, how are you growing your numbers?
Correct. And so they didn't just live in the community; they effectively lived inside Synanon like a full time,
Yeah.
and it was briefly a legitimate business empire. So it wasn't just another run of the mill commune, kind of like the Davidians over at Mount Carmel or Mount whatever it was, right? So this group, the group specifically, this group had real estate holdings. They had a manufacturing business or businesses. At one point, they had a tax exempt status. They had a structured internal economy. And on paper, this sounds like everything a success story should be.
Yeah. I mean,
So, which is again
yeah.
different than the Wacos.
Hmm.
So you hit on the head shaving, right? So it wasn't
Yes.
just symbolic; it was reinforcement. So if you were left and you were punished, sometimes you had your head forcibly shaved. Again, humiliation or identification of outsiders within. So the question I have now is, if members who left, how did they get their head shaved? Did they leave and come back? Were they then stalked and harassed outside after they left? And I'm gonna shave your head after, in your sleep or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you see that with like the Church of Scientology, right? Where you can leave, but then you can also be harassed or kidnapped and drugged back. So
So they say.
yeah, yeah, you definitely. I think you nailed it there. I think if somebody leaves, they leave and behind them and keep tabs on them to make sure they're not giving up too much information anywhere, and then eventually try to drag them back. Because you got to,
So
like you said, right? These were all recovering alcoholics or
yep.
trying to be recovering alcoholics. So if somebody bails and decides they're going to go relapse, these guys follow them, wait for them to relapse. They come out all drunk and they're, start the game, out there in the wild, telling them, hey, you failed, you're this, you're that, disappointment, blah, blah, blah. Family hates you, nobody loves you, whatever. Wait for them to break down and throw them in the back of the van and head on back. Try again. I can see that being a
It
thing.
it's just an interesting concept when you think about the idea of cults, right? I know we've already kind of hit on one with Waco. And here's another good example of one on the opposite spectrum. Again, it wasn't religious founded. It wasn't like it
Right.
was literally founded on a self help. Again, it went bad. It went south,
Mm-hmm.
sour or whatever. Um, and looking at the founder, Dederich, um, he didn't style himself as a cult leader, right? He
Mm-hmm.
didn't claim visions or voices from God or a higher power. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't claim divine power or anything like that. He didn't predict the end of the world. Um,
You didn't
he just
partake in a resurrection off?
he did not. No, he didn't. Right? He didn't Avada Kedavra or whatever Harry Potter says.
Yeah,
Um, he just a guy that figured out a system that worked,
sure.
and that's what made it so hard to recognize so early on.
Well, he also picked on, people at their weakest,
Ah,
right? Recovering
there you
alcoholics, recovering addicts, whatever. That's when people are at their weakest, especially when they initially go through the detox or whatever,
Yep.
that is brutal on people.
The need to fit in or
Yep.
have an acceptance on something outside of your toxic behavior or your
Mm-hmm.
negative behavior, in this case again drinking or whatever it is.
Yep.
So looking at this, what makes this again for me the most fascinating is, again, it didn't start as anything super bad. It was a helpful group and it worked, but it ended ultimately in, again, what turned the tides of this group was the rattlesnake incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it became one of the most infamous intimidation cases tied to communal organization in the U.S. history.
Really? They
And
called
all
that
because that
intimidation.
attorney,
They didn't call it attempted murder.
no, no.
Interesting.
And the other part was he survived.
That's why I
But
said
as you
attempted.
said it,
Yeah.
it's just to say, as you said, attempted murder, right?
Hmm.
But it directly accelerated any legal pressure that was already on Synanon
Mm-hmm.
to then full escalation to now we need to do something, right? So these guys have escalated to a point of no return. And it all took was that attorney, Paul Morantz, whatever his name was, and I don't even know exactly why that happened. I haven't looked into that. It just, again, right now, just telling the superficial story of this rabbit hole and giving you the case right off the top, right?
Yeah.
Um, and looking at basically how Synanon from the 50s to even up to his death and their disillusion or whatever it was, delusion,
Mm-hmm.
their fall, whatever word I'm looking for there. Some of its ideas are tied to modern rehab culture indirectly now. Peer based group accountability.
Mm-hmm.
It really influenced, any addiction recovery and therapeutic communities, although a little more heavily modified than
Yeah.
what you have now.
I mean, you still see that
And
now in AA, right? With sponsors.
correct.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they didn't have it back then,
Sure.
but it's changed how that is nowadays through what he did there because it worked. So
Right.
he had some good points, and they're like, wish we could use some of this stuff and be less culty in the end. And maybe it's regulated, maybe it's monitored, maybe it's, again, I don't truly know. I've not done any of that in years. But this is a good example of that therapy that worked. And as you said, he was no longer drunk on alcohol, he was drunk on power. And his followers did whatever he asked. And I'd just be curious to find out, did he ask and have, again, that attorney, we need to send a message to that attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Did we, need to, I don't know what was done to the journalists when journalists are harassed.
Yeah, I wonder, did he order it or request it versus did the members just take it upon themselves to
And I can't
go
imagine
after him?
members would do it unless there's a community like a council or a group of elders, so to speak.
Yeah, but if you're, say, a newer member, right, and you're wanting to try to get into the leader's good graces and you know that this lawyer or journalist is causing problems, do you
Yeah,
think,
maybe.
oh, maybe I should go make a name for myself?
It's like a very negative thing to do.
Yeah. But,
I don't
it
know.
begs the question, this is the second cult we've talked about. At what point does a group go from a club or a religious group or, a therapy group? When does it cross the threshold into becoming a cult? What draws that line that goes from this is a business, this is a religious group, this is a whatever you want to call this, a alcoholics group, into that true cult territory? Is it when they start committing crimes? Because a lot of businesses has committed crimes and we don't call them cults. A lot of groups have committed crimes and we don't call them cults. If somebody's a Christian and they go
Yeah.
out and they go out and commit murder, we don't say Christianity's a cult. Same thing with Judaism, same thing with Islam. You can make the argument, the holy war in the Middle East, right, between the Shiites and the Sunnis. We don't call either one of them cults. They're religions. So what draws the line between group or religion or whatever, and what makes it cross the line into cult territory?
And that's a fascinating question because there's so much out there that again, I'm going to take from my line to, I don't side into with the religious thoughts, but playing devil's advocate, if you were to say that, well, just because I'm Christian and I'm not, Jewish, obviously, well, Judaism is a cult because I'm Christianity. I'm Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Or as you said, right? So, I mean, who's to say, that some sect is not saying that, well, obviously your religion's wrong, mine is correct. And maybe they are. Again, I don't know. I don't follow religion. I don't div into any of that.
Yeah, but even still, if you don't agree with another religion, you don't typically refer to them as cults. Like, and maybe it's just because they have been around so long that they don't ever get that label. But like,
So
if somebody,
are they the world's oldest cult?
Maybe. I mean, here's what I find fascinating though. If somebody is a Christian, you say they are part of a religion. Now, Christianity has God, Jesus, and then of course the devil, right? Lucifer. So you flip that. If you're somebody that is worshiping Satan, it automatically gets labeled as a cult. Always.
But why? You're already in with.
It's technically part of Christianity.
Correct.
I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying it immediately gets the cult thing. You start seeing, pentagrams on the wall. You start seeing, the 666 on the wall. It's automatically a cult, right? So what is it that draws the line between a club or a group or a religion crossing into cult territory? Is it when because you can't say it's when they start committing murders.
Correct.
Because there's been many murderers in the however long this species has been on the planet, and we don't change anybody's religion status to cult. So what makes it a cult leader? Is it when they take complete control over somebody?
Take away free will.
Is that what it is? When you officially lose free will is when you become a cult. When you say you have to do this or you can't be here. So,
my guess,
by that argument, is the military a cult?
I mean,
You don't have free will in the military. You're under contract. You get your orders and you go do what you're told to do. And a lot of cults run their cult like a military, right? That same kind of hierarchy and structure. If you are ordered from the guy above you, you don't get to say no.
So reading a little bit right now. So looking at, you talked about the military.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example, again, military organizations, they use a hierarchy and discipline, but they still allow exit and external accountability. Whereas a cult would not allow somebody to leave. Or if they do, they face, again, that harassment afterwards. That external accountability, right? So being criticized by the public, by the media, by whoever. Cults don't like that. Military doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, but you can leave the military, but you got a lot of hoops you got to jump through. You can't just pack your bags and say, I'm done and leave in the middle of the night. Now you're AWOL. Now you're getting arrested.
But can you leave at the end of your obligated contract, right? But can you leave without punishment? So the nuance to ask is, can I leave freely? Can I think independently? And can I access outside information without punishment? Those are your main factors.
That's true. You're not cut off from the world necessarily when you're in the military. You can reach out to loved ones. So that's a thing, right, with Scientology, is that you're not allowed to reach out to anybody that's outside the church from your family. Like if you have family members that aren't in Scientology, you have to cut all ties with them. It's one of their big things.
And there's not really a legal or a universal agreed upon checklist, right? There's just a bunch of warning signs. And this is where, again, this is a good example of this group had warning signs, and they walked that line and just continued to slowly kind of start walking further and further away from the green or the morally gray line to now being a little bit more nefarious.
Yeah. It's always fascinated me at what point does it become a cult, because some people will say, oh, when they all start dressing the same. Well, you know, in Judaism, all the men wear, you know, the yarmulke, right? In Islam, they all wear, you know, the longer, I don't know what the technical term is for it, and I don't want to offend anybody, but the longer garb than what we wear in America as t-shirt and jeans, right? They wear the longer setup. And then, you know, in Christianity, a lot of people will wear the crucifix on something on their person to say, or get it tattooed or whatever to signify that they are Christians. So you can't necessarily say it's because they all dress the same. You can't say it's because they all act the same, because if you are Christian or religious, you follow that religion to a T, and the guy beside you is doing the same thing, so you're all acting the same in theory. So I've just always been fascinated with what draws the line. And you can't say symbols, because every religion has their own symbol, whether it's, you know, the crucifix or the Star of David or whatever. So I'm curious as to what truly defines it's a cult.
Rabbits, I need you to comment. What's the answer to this question? What do you think? Because I don't have an answer.
I don't have an answer, because every answer I come up with in my head, I'm like, well, you could also apply that to something else.
I think it goes back to the main ask is, again, if I disagree with something, can I safely say that I disagree and not be, you know, persecuted? If I leave, am I allowed to stay connected to my friends and family who may still be there? Is leadership accountable? I mean, you look even, again, I'm not political, even look at the president, right? Is the president accountable? You know, or whoever your leader is. And am I allowed to verify any claims independently? Because, again, somebody says, well, if you do this, this is going to happen. Can I verify that on my own?
Do you believe that the term cult is sometimes used as a weapon to depict certain groups as evil or nefarious in certain ways? Do you believe sometimes they utilize that word in the media because they know it's a trigger for most people to go, oh, cult, this is terrible?
Yeah, because you're predisposed to say, oh, we know cults are bad.
Yeah,
just absolutely, like I agree with that.
Back in the day, you know, they used to always throw out they're devil worshippers. And before that, it was they're witches, right? You want to throw it back all the way to the Salem witch trials. You know, they said all these women were were witches, right? Burned them all at the stake. What made them witches? Did anybody see them actually doing magic, or were we just paranoid? I don't know. I just find it very. I feel like we kind of pick and choose what we're going to label as a cult, and I think it's a little more obvious sometimes when things are cults. Like if you look at, and I think a lot of it falls into anything that's also associated with more of the pagan religions, right? People will call them cults. Like if you ever seen the movie Midsommar, did you see that one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that
Yep.
was a cult, right? But to them, they're not a cult. To them, they're a religion, right? To them, they believe in a pagan deity and they are a pagan religion. But from the outside, with society
Yep.
as we see it and our norms, we call it a cult.
I'm gonna say I loved the movie The Wicker Man with Nicolas
Mm,
Cage.
yes, another
Not the
cult,
bees.
another pagan cult, right? But in their mind, they were another pagan religion.
Correct. Based off Midsummer, obviously, but
Yeah, similar
when you look at
movies.
some of these groups in the early phases, again, Synanon early phase, I would argue not a cult, but then power corrupted, right? So absolute power corrupts absolutely, or whatever that saying is.
Absolute power corrupts
What?
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that one. And then a little controversial now, but recently that I don't know what the name was or is, or how do you say it? NXIVM. I don't know what that word is. So there's a thing specifically, and that was the master slave group, and that's actually recent. In NXIVM, it probably means something. It may actually be Roman numerals, maybe. I don't
Maybe.
know.
It sounds like it.
But it was originally marketed as an executive self-improvement and personal development program.
Hmm.
So early participants in this say they found value in communication and in the confidence training. Shit, I give a training, monthly at work.
Yeah.
And I want to build confidence of our leaders.
Sure.
Well, obviously we're doing it for work purposes and not for my own self-motivation. But anyway, and then those two examples right there are good examples where they started out almost, innocently enough, but then got into more nefarious things.
Yeah.
And another one to talk about is the Renish movement up in Oregon. So around the Oregon commune phase, this group basically promoted meditation, free expression, and communal living.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, later on, it escalated into conflict with communities, criminal activity. I think there was a bioterror attack in Oregon by its followers. Again, no different than the rattlesnake. So again, but
wow,
early, this was worked, right?
Sure.
And here's a more controversial one. Some people say that Alcoholics Anonymous itself is a cult.
I don't know. I mean, technically, you can leave it at any time, right?
Yeah. And if your battle buddy's good, he's not going to let you leave, though.
Right.
So the theory on it, though, is again, it's helped millions achieve sobriety. Again, I'm for AA by the way, so don't give me any hate on that.
I'm in for anything that helps people recover.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Anything that gets them recovered. I mean, you can drink, but drink responsibly. Obviously, drugs are a different story, but it don't let it consume your life and destroy your life. And if it is, get help. That's where I'm at with that. So I also support that.
The difference in this one specifically is the sense that there's no central authoritarian leader. There's no one high purpose power. There's no coercive isolation. Again, if you relapse, I mean, you're not. They want to bring you back. They want to see you well, I believe. And again, you can leave freely without any consequences, right?
Sure.
So that's a good example of some that started out kind of innocently enough, but turned out kind of bad. Some more than others. Again, that NX14M, it's got to be
whatever that is. It's weird.
That's a
So I guess when it
That's got to
starts
be a Roman
crossing into
numeral.
the realm of dictatorship is when it becomes more of a cult.
Yes.
Because you don't have necessarily that with religions, right? Like you go to a priest or you go to a rabbi or whatever, they tell you, well, this is what God says in the Bible, or this is what Jesus says in the Bible, or this is what Yahweh says in the Bible, or this is what Allah says in the Bible, this is what Buddha says. It's never them telling you what they want you to do. It's what they believe that a higher power said that you should be doing based off of scripture. But when you start getting into this, you're going to do this for me because I have been anointed as a prophet or as your leader or whatever. You devout yourself to me. I guess that's when you start getting into more of the cult realm. Or if you start bringing in, pagan deities or satanic demon style things, that's when people start getting more uh, trigger happy with the word cult.
So I'm going to take it back just for a minute to the NXIVM.
Hmm.
Again, it's not Roman numerals specifically. It's just a branding of this group that was founded in the 90s.
Interesting.
NXIVM. Again, it's a controversial organization. The transition from a self-help branding group into more of the cult dynamics and coercive control group to, again, some master slave stuff. And obviously they crossed the line, but again,
Sure.
cult behavior.
Hmm.
So that is the main things that I wanted to bring up on the Synanon and Charles Dederich. Again, it kind of mirrors a little bit of the Waco episode that we talked about here recently, but on the other side of things, there's not religion. It's not a standoff with the government. It's it was the government stepping in and saying, "Hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You can't send live rattlesnakes to people. You can't go do that."
You can't
Obviously, they didn't send a
mail a
UPS or anything, but
rattlesnake. That's animal cruelty. Animal cruelty.
yeah, there you go. Right. So call Sarah McLaughlin or whoever the the lady is in the arms of an angel.
Yes.
Right. There
Yeah,
you
you're
go.
right. Yeah, the saddest commercials of all time. Break your heart
So
between the hours of 11 p.m. and 3 a.m.
that is my story today. Again, it was a shorter one, but the main thing's talking about what crosses the line into cults. We did talk about cults prior. We didn't kind of delve into that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
This is another one of those. Again, another cult that started out again as a good thing. I'm not saying the Branch of Venus that started out as good either. They may have had some good points, may have had some good communal living, but again, ultimately it went to shit.
Yeah.
It's no different than Synanon, right? And Charles Dederich. The power went to his head, right? And
Yep.
he loved people worshiping him as being this genius. Maybe not necessarily an evil genius, but a genius. And he didn't tell them, no, stop. He wasn't humble, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, don't do that. He was like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that certain people are just should never have power. They're not built for it. They can't handle it. But no, this was an interesting topic. This was a group that I had never heard of, and I've heard of quite a few different famous cults in history. And I think it led to a really interesting discussion of what constitutes a cult versus,
It's a good question.
like I said, a club or a group or a religion. What takes it from being socially accepted to you're a cult, and demonized.
And the thing with it is, again, there are a lot of stories that we're going to tell in this podcast, in this series. Some of them are going to have answers. Most of ours aren't.
Yeah.
And that's what makes these, but I think these stories worth chasing, right? This is why I want to go down these rabbit holes, because there's so much more depth to this story, to any of these stories we've told so far. You just never know where they're going to go and what you're going to get out of it. And again, there's not a lot of answers.
No, and I think that's what makes the conversations so interesting is that they're very open ended, right? And I think that's what makes it fun is when there is no answer, it opens up that discussion that you can then branch off into other discussions, burrow off into other rabbit holes, so to speak. I think that's what makes it interesting, and those are the topics that I enjoy talking about because I don't like saying, "Oh yeah, this is this is what happened, and here's the answer, blah blah blah. Like even with Waco, everybody says, oh, this is what happened. 51-day standoff, fire at the end. A lot of people died.
Shit, we still don't know what happened.
We still don't know what happened. We still don't know who started the fire. We still don't know who shot first, and we still don't know if the plan was to escape out of the tunnel that they didn't realize it collapsed. We just don't know. So there's a lot more mystery there than what you would see just watching a typical, documentary about it on Netflix or Hulu or Tubi or whatever.
Billy Joel said it best. We didn't start the fire.
We didn't start the fire. That's a good song. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this topic, and I think it led to a very good discussion, and a discussion I want to see continued in the comments with our listeners and our watchers is what to you constitutes a cult? At what point to you does it cross the line and become a cult?
Now, by you saying you want to see it in the comments, you're not ordering the rabbits to comment. You're just saying that you can willingly comment if you want to. We want you to. That's what he's trying to get at.
This is a cult. We're growing our cult, 100%.
And they are labeled as rabbits.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes. We are the shepherds.
Oh, I can't wait to get the website up. I'm going to get the website up soon.
Yeah.
Get a real commune on the website.
Be on the look for that if you want to join the commune.
All right.
We have to buy
anyway, Matty P, that's what I got. For now, that is my tidbit for the episode. Rabbits, as I said, let us know what you think. As Matty P asked, what do you think constitutes a cult? Are there good cults? Are all cults bad? Let us know what you think in the comments.
Yeah, and with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and take us out, Tonio, unless you have any objections.
No, take it out, bro.
You guys already know the deal. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you stuck around with us this long, be sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell. And this is now your second reminder to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And going forward, I'm going to hit you with a third reminder to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And comment down below, what do you believe constitutes a cult? At what point do they cross the line? And we hope you guys enjoyed the topic. And we will see.
Hey, before you set off, before you say the final word here, rabbits, don't forget, comment your rabbit hole stories that you want us to delve into.
Good point.
We'd appreciate it.
Yep.
We would appreciate that.
Have a topic, be sure to drop it like it's hot.
Now you can proceed.
And we will see you in the next episode.